everyone, my name is Bobby Shortle, and I'm here with Nick, Rocco, Scalia, and we are the Intrepid Filmographers. Every mini-series, we chart a course through the full filmography of an under-discussed genre or journeyman filmmaker. In this expedition, we do our best to try and be explorers, using our years of film knowledge to help guide us, but always being open to discovering new things about the medium we love so much. We are currently embedded in the films of Joe Wright, and today we head to Neverland for his 6th film, Pan, and see if we can think any happy thoughts. Nick, how are you doing tonight?
I'm all revved up and ready to go. Hope you are too.
I mean, here I am now. Entertain me, all right?
Oh boy. Pan. 2015's Pan.
2015's Pan. A movie that truly doesn't exist. I told maybe 3 people about the movie, like 3 people who were into movies. And they were like, what? Which one is that?
Well, that was the conversation you and I had also.
Yeah.
I got this confused with the, 03, the one with Jason Isaacs. I was hoping it would be the one with Jason Isaacs. It was not.
No,
There's
it's not.
other people in this that we'll talk about.
There certainly are other actors are in this movie.
There is no Jason Isaacs, unfortunately.
So this marks the second instance of us covering a Blacklist script.
Yeah, the second Joe Wright movie based on a Blacklist script.
Yeah, so this is our 3rd Blacklist script then, because the first was Air, right? We did Air.
Oh, sure. Which was a Blacklist script. Air from Ben Affleck, and then also Hannah, directed by Joe Wright a couple of movies ago.
Right.
Seems like a long time ago.
It does seem like a long time ago, man. Those are the days. And our second Garrett Hedlund feature after our inaugural episode, Tron Legacy. So we can actually not only talk about Joe Wright's sort of career and where this stands, but also like 10 years later, basically, almost 10 years later, not quite 10 years later, but, a good amount of years later, talk about Garrett Hedlund's career, I guess, or lack thereof at this point. So
very big part in this, though. I mean, this is
huge part.
I mean, as far as everything I've seen him in, I mean, it's this and Tron Legacy as far as the major.
We're talking about 4 brothers. He was
a brother. And
he was one of the 4 brothers.
Like he was the least important of the 4 brothers. Yeah, he was like the redheaded stepchild of the 4 brothers.
His
good movie,
absolute
by the way.
Best performance is, what's it called? Isn't he the driver in Inside Llewyn Davis? Like he's John Goodman's driver.
Yeah. He's very good in that movie.
He's very good in that
movie.
The only thing I've ever seen him in that he's been actually good in. But
wait, you didn't like this performance in Pan? Well, I guess we're gonna have a real difference of opinion here. I thought it was brilliant.
You thought it was brilliant. Top tier. Move over, Harrison Ford. The new Indiana Jones is here, and his name is
That's it.
Hot Hook. So this is from a Blacklist script, like we just said, Jason Fuchs. And I saw the name Jason Fuchs when the movie started, and I was like, I know that name for some reason, and I was like, why? He has a story credit on Wonder Woman. I don't think that's why I remembered him. It's because of 2 things. One, he wrote everyone's favorite 2024 movie, Argylle, directed by Matthew Vaughn.
I thought you were going to say Ice Age Continental Drift. But
no, I didn't know Ice Age Continental Drift.
Well, that was the only thing he had produced, but I think he wrote Pan before that. But probably Pan getting on the Blacklist got him the Ice Age.
I'm assuming, yes.
Ice Age 3 or 4? That's like late in that series.
Yes, I don't know which one it is. It's an Ice Age. I've never seen a single Ice Age movie. So
really? Oh, I've seen a couple of them. I might have even seen that one.
I have not seen any of them. He is the showrunner for. And I just remember his name because I remember his name is from just a press release, which is that he's the showrunner for the It prequel series that's going to be on Hulu or whatever it's going to be. Welcome to Derry
series.
Yeah.
Okay, because I looked at his filmography and there wasn't really much of note on there aside from, I mean, the Wonder Woman story credit's a pretty nice get, but that means they took like an idea or 2 of his and were like, no, let's write a good script based on this.
Well, I believe with that movie, I mean, again, we're not doing a Patty Jenkins series, though might be a good series to do at some point. Interesting director for sure.
Then we got to watch 1984. You've seen it. Have you seen it?
No, I've never seen it.
Oh, I figured you'd seen it.
No, I haven't seen it. Wonder Woman 1984. Yes, I've seen it. It's a terrible movie.
I didn't mean the Orwell adaptation.
Yeah, I thought I was like, did she do some Orwell adaptation I wasn't aware of? Yes. A catastrophic miscalculation of what the sequel to Wonder Woman
nobody abbreviates that as 1984?
I don't think so.
We just know that it's Wonder Woman 1984.
You could have said Wonder Woman 2. I would have been much more.
That's not what it's called.
I know, anyway. But it's also not called 1984 either.
It is, isn't it? It's called Wonder Woman 1984.
But it's called Wonder Woman. If you're going to get pedantic about the title, Nick.
But it's such a popular and beloved movie that I feel like I can just abbreviate the title.
It's true. But I think the story with that is the original script written by Fuchs and Snyder And then they bring in Alan Heinberg, who is a famous comic book writer, wrote Wonder Woman for a long time, who does a big rewrite. And a lot of what that story actually ends up being is his take on it. But so Fuchs, he gets the script on the blacklist in 2013. And then basically it just kind of goes. Hedlund and Hugh Jackman are cast in 2014. Amanda Seyfried is cast in 2014. We'll talk about her as we go through this thing.
Really?
Yes, because
barely in this movie.
I know, but that's what I want to talk about with it. In February 2014, it's also our second Amanda Seyfried movie. In February 2014,
if you can even count it as one, but
yeah,
okay.
No, definitely not. Can't count it as one. They do the casting call for Peter Pan himself. Levi Miller is who they cast. They cast Rooney Mara as Tiger Lily, which is something we also really have to talk about. And Carla Delvine is also cast in this movie. In between doing Anna Karenina and this movie, because this movie is a few years after, ends up releasing a few years after Anna Karenina, right? I think it's 3 years after. He had a couple of starts and stops. He tried to get this Little Mermaid adaptation going. So this is dark, like more based on the original Hans Christian Andersen take on it. Supposed to be moody and dark. He had to leave it. He kind of dropped out to scheduling and concerns like that. Almost went with Sofia Coppola. That version also got canned. He also tried to make an adaptation, or not maybe an adaptation, but a story, an adaptation of the book Strange Angel, which is about Jack Parsons, who is that rocket scientist who's also like a cult member and stuff like that. Ended up being a television show later on without his involvement. So he kind of like had a couple projects that he was cooking on, and then they didn't go, and he ends up doing Pan. It cost $150 million.
His most expensive movie by a very, very, very wide margin to date.
A huge margin. It's truly his one big budget, truly big budget in the modern sense movie. We've mentioned many times.
The intention for this was for it to be blockbuster status. It was looking at a summer release, IMAX release. This was... They had a
Comic-Con panel, all that kind of stuff.
Someone definitely saw something. There was a glimmer in someone's eye for Pan.
Yes, absolutely. And obviously did not happen that way since the movie doesn't exist. But we talked about many times in the other movies, right, that all his movies tend to cost more than you would expect them to cost by what you're seeing on screen. He's an expensive filmmaker, right? He spends a lot of time and a lot of intricacies in how he makes movies, building lots of sets, shooting on locations, lots of this kind of stuff. And I think in the past, with all the other movies, even the ones that didn't hit necessarily, they made just enough money and were just prestige enough where people go, well, they didn't make a lot of money, but we get a little cachet for making this movie. Got a couple Oscar nominations, whatever. This is definitely the end of that for him, for sure. And we might be talking about really the end of his, let's say, like director-driven career, right? Because there's another break in between this and the next movie, which obviously we're going to talk about next time. But this is a colossal failure, right? Colossal failure. Makes like $30-something million in the United States, barely gets even close to its like reported budget number worldwide, which if you know anything about box office, basically half of that number goes to the theaters, half of that number goes to the studios, and that's not even including the marketing spend, which is probably at least another $100 million on top of the budget, probably.
This thing got beat out in its opening week by Hotel Transylvania 2, which was, when there's one kids movie out, it's the kids movies are kind of vying for that. Usually one of them is number one. That wasn't. That was 2. And I think that had been out for like 2 weeks at that point. So this got pretty slammed in that opening frame here in America.
The Martian was also out that weekend as well. I don't know if that was its oopening weekend or not.
I think it was the week before, but that crushed it too.
Yeah,
that beat them both.
A runaway success, The Martian.
Yeah. Good movie.
Wish we were talking about The Martian tonight. So, I'm basically cards on the table. This movie is very bad. I think that in just about every way, it kind of stumbles in its visual design, in most of its performances, in its conception. I think that it is a standard bearer for this particular era of Hollywood where they were obsessed with this sort of origin story
for a familiar IP. Let's find what happened to these characters before we got to know them.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just the what if, we make a Peter Pan movie where he's not Peter Pan for like the entire movie. Like that's the sort of like idea, because obviously there's going to be like 3 of these. And so it'll be even, better when he's Peter Pan in Pan 2
Well, let me ask that question because I couldn't find. I saw that in some review, that there is a plan for a franchise here. But did you see any official word that this was designed to be?
No, because I think they quickly knew that was not going to happen, right?
Well, because there's stuff that I very much expected in this movie that I think anyone who knows anything about Peter Pan would expect in this movie, and they just blatantly do not do it. It's almost the last line in this movie is almost just a middle finger to audiences expecting what this probably should have been.
It is one of the last line. It feels like it was put in there.
Oh, it's ADR beyond anything I've ever heard. Yeah.
That definitely felt like
for sure.
Felt like okay, we know this isn't going to be a franchise, so let's just put this line at the end so people know that But we can fill in the blanks. The next thing that happens is the Peter Pan that that's what it feels like at the end.
And it would have been so easy to do it. And they just, I mean, that's Hollywood hubris, right?
Yeah.
If they were saving that for Pan 2, and I don't know why we're talking around it here, but I guess maybe we should. We'll get through the entire thing. But it's until about 2 minutes before this was over, I was like, okay, I know what's going to happen here. This is going to take a little turn at the end, and that's going to kind of set things up, and this can function as a proper prequel. That's all I guess I was asking of it at that point, and it couldn't even do that for me. I will say, though, if we are putting our cards on the table, I hated this a little bit less than you did. I found this a little bit more watchable than you did, and I stand by the first 15 minutes. I texted you 15 minutes into this, and I was like, the first 15 minutes of this are pretty great. And then minute 16, something happens that we'll definitely talk about. And that really is kind of the start of the downward spiral. But there were moments later on that I wasn't completely, hating, although there was a lot to dislike kind of all the way through.
Yeah, I mean,
except for that first 15 minutes.
I don't agree about the first 15 minutes. I think the first 10 minutes are also not that great. But really? I will say, but I will say this. I think that there are moments in it. There are certain scenes and I think choreographed action that I think work and in a different movie would you go away being like, oh, that was a fun action sequence. But I think that just the overall recipe is so full of spoiled food, at that point it's full of spoiled food that I think that it doesn't earn its keep. I will say that. I think that's really the big problem for me. And I don't understand, right? I think, look, Joe Wright, The Soloist is not a very good movie, right? It's not a very good movie. This is worse than The Soloist.
Agreed.
Give me The Soloist every day compared to this thing. I think this is the worst movie we've covered on the show.
Wow. Okay. I don't know if I'd go quite that far with it, but fair enough.
I would rather watch Live by Night.
Live by Night? I was going to ask about Live by Night. Yeah.
over this. And but Wright, even in The Soloist, right, he has a handle on performances. He has a handle on what he's trying to do, even if that thing I don't think works. In The Soloist, I don't think it works. I think it's his one film that really doesn't work other than this one that we've watched so far. And in this, I just doesn't feel like he has any handle on what he wants the movie to be in any moment, right? It's is this it is in the very beginning almost, where even the beginning it flops a couple times, where it's this is we're going to start, this is on the ground, this is ground, we're on the ground. Peter is an orphan in London. Everyone's mean to him. It's a little bit whatever. It's a terrible, nun who runs the orphanage. And then that gets a little bit silly, right? And then it flops back to being serious, and then it flops back to being silly. It flops back to being serious. And then sometimes it's here is an abjectly, completely silly thing that he treats it is serious, and then almost vice versa sometimes, where it's a serious thing that they're treating in a silly way. And I just don't feel like he has any handle on the tone or the pacing of the movie. And also feels very out of his depth when it comes to the special effects and choreographing an action scene where it's not, so visceral and on the ground, something like Hannah, right? Where you can have it's just a person fighting another person. This is dealing with, probably a ton of previs. You're shooting on green screens. You're shooting with the things aren't really there. And it's he just doesn't seem to be able to conceptualize how that blocking and action is going to flow together and work. There are some scene transitions in this movie where I'm this is what you did?
Yeah.
This is the edit that was created? This is a professional people made this? That's sometimes that happens in this movie, which I've never seen in any of his movies, even in The Soloist, which I didn't like. So that's my main thing with this.
I agree with that. I had two things to say about that. One of them, I disagree with you a little bit about the tone. It's actually my favorite thing about the movie. I went into this, maybe it's just because it subverted my expectations so much. I thought this was going to be a prestige pick Oscar guy director trying to do a very self-serious Peter Pan, very reverent sort of, this is where this character come from. This is the pain of Peter Pan, right? This is how he, I was going to say grew up, but he obviously, that's the point of Peter Pan.
Famously, he does not grow up.
That he does not grow up. I thought this was going to be a very sort of reverent movie and very just sort of Oscar baity. And I thought the tone of this was actually a lot of fun. It's very silly. I agree that sometimes it's a little too silly for what it's trying to do, but like it's this kind of rollicking madcap adventure that is never really taking itself all that seriously to me. And I enjoyed that about it. I actually found it a lot easier to watch because it was that. I did not want this to be like a very serious, and it occasionally goes that way. Peter has this backstory. He's an orphan, but his mother drops him off. It's the same old cliched story in a basket at the door of the orphanage. And
wait, Nick. She's not just a woman dropping off her son.
No.
She's a Neverland warrior.
She is. She's human, and the dad was a fairy.
The dad was a fairy who became a person for just a little bit of time.
He can only be human for one day.
Yeah, before he dies.
There's a lot of mythology here that I just want to throw out the window. But I do like when it kind of, the further it gets from that, and the more it's just like campy, silly, rollicking, madcap. Like I said, I really enjoy that stuff. But I will agree with you very much. I think the action scenes in this movie are terrible. I think they are, and I don't know that if I want to necessarily give Joe Wright all the blame for it because they are edited in a Cuisinart. Like there are moments where it's like, even just very simple things, right? Like a character punching another character, and we see like none of it, right? Like we're cutting away before the punch even connects. Maybe that's like to secure the PG rating or something, but like literally we're not cutting away from the punch. We're cutting to like something else, like that same character in another place in the same scene with no connective material at all. Like the continuity, like simple continuity is just violated 1,000 times in this movie. And, it's like, that feels like, maybe a studio decision, like maybe this was running too long. Maybe there was a plan to, like what we talked about this with another bad movie that we watched on the show, which was Karen Kusama's Aeon Flux, where she had designed that as a more sort of like a Crouching Tiger, more sedate sort of action movie, more like lyrical sort of action movie. And they just cut it up to, fast-paced Matrix aping nonsense. This feels like that, but so much farther in that direction. I mean, like there are setups for really cool action scenes here, and we barely get them. Right in that first 15 minutes, right? Like we've got a flying pirate ship being pursued by World War II fighter planes shooting at it. Like I'm down for that. I'm still a little kid at heart, and a scene like that flying over London, in a pirate ship getting shot at by airplanes. Awesome, but you barely get to see anything that's going on there. It has like very little weight to it. It goes by way too quickly. I don't at least let the movie breathe in a moment like that, and it never really does.
Yeah, when I would say like also the problem is the setup for that is cool, absolutely. Like World War II planes fighting a flying pirate ship, cool idea on paper, right? But I will say that I think the problem with that is it looks like ass most of the time. The planes look like toys, right? There's all of these like CG Levi Miller when he's like in this, like when he's hanging up the ship where he looks like Tintin. He looks like Tintin in those moments.
There's a moment where he's climbing across a rope and it so clearly is just someone green screen that is not even on a rope. And it's like, couldn't you just have him go across a rope that's like 2 feet off the ground or something? But yeah.
So stuff like that is bad. This opening stuff, not just stuff in the orphanage necessarily, but the stuff on the street when she drops the baby off, the stuff in the ship, it falls into this trap of like this modern filmmaking trap, which I hate, which is that once people start using digital cameras, they're like, well, we don't need a lot of light. We can make it actually look dark. And I'm like, but it doesn't look good. It looks flat and ugly. And I can barely see what's going on. You can't shoot an action scene where I can't see what's going on. Like, it's just stupid. It's just a stupid thing. You're making a big, you're supposed to be making a big, like you said, fun, rollicking, kind of like almost throwbacky adventure movie. Make it look like a throwbacky adventure movie. And I agree with you. Like, if the movie was just like, we're going to be completely silly the entire time, I would have liked it more, probably. But it does try to be like, no. You don't understand. this little boy really wants to see his mom, and there's all these times where they're like trying to, pull up like the psychology or like, the worth of the Captain Hook character, and they're always like, you don't even know what you're doing. You don't even care. You're just doing this for yourself or whatever. I'm like, this guy has literally done nothing wrong the entire movie. All he's done is stick his neck out for people who don't care about him. And you're supposed to, I don't buy that you would be like, well, you said something kind of rude while you were saving his life. So
everybody is kind of very dismissive of him. And I don't know why. He's also, we'll talk about the performance, but this character is so badly trying to be Indiana Jones.
Oh my God.
And Han Solo. There's an archetype there. There's a model there. And it's like, if this is going to be an origin story for Peter Pan and Captain Hook, then you got to give him something too, right? He's got nothing. It's a very, very thinly written character. And the direction I think they gave to Garrett Hedlund was be Indiana Jones. And we'll talk about how successful he was in that. We
can talk about Garrett Hedlund right now if we want. Okay. We'll talk about the performances in general. The plot of this, we'll go over the plot really quick. I'll do the plot synopsis really quick because I'm assuming most people haven't watched the movie, and lucky you. So this begins, Peter gets dropped off as a baby at an orphanage by his mother, and she leaves like this pan flute like charm with him, right? We fast forward to, 12 years later or something like that, however old he is at this point. It's during World War II. It's during the Blitz of London. And he's at an orphanage run by these like terrible nuns, one of which is like stealing, and hoarding all the food. And she has like a weird, huge basement full of gold and chocolate or whatever.
It's a lot of contraband in there.
It's a lot of contraband down there.
Yeah.
And there are kids disappearing from the orphanage, and Peter and his friend decide to like stay up and see what's going on. Turns out pirates from Neverland are stealing the kids.
Wait. Hold on. Let me stop you here because it's one of my favorite things, maybe my favorite thing in the movie. There's this wonderful scene in the, the dormitory.
I want to go back to scene by scene. I just want to give the whole like plot of the movie really quick.
So all right. I just don't want to skip over that because it really is.
We'll go back.
It's legit good.
We'll promise. So the kids are taken by pirates. Blackbeard's crew, basically a fictionalized version of Blackbeard and his crew, take these kids to Neverland where they're put in the mines to mine fairy
unobtainium
crystals, whatever it is.
It's like solidified, hardened pixie dust. Movie, I feel like this is very much a post-Avatar Peter Pan movie.
Yeah, like post all of these type of movies.
Yeah, but I definitely got some serious We Want to Be Avatar vibes from this. So yeah, Pixum it's called. I hate that word so much.
It's a terrible word. Peter, basically, there's like sort of like a misunderstanding in the beginning, and Peter is kind of sentenced to death. And instead of falling to his death off this pirate ship, he's able to fly. And there is a prophecy that says a boy who can fly will come and kill Blackbeard. So for some reason, Blackbeard doesn't kill him. It just keeps him alive. And a hot young Captain Hook, played by Garrett Hedlund, helps him escape the mines for, exchange for like help, because he can fly, get them out of there. They'll steal a ship. They'll leave. Peter doesn't want to leave. He wants to find his mother, who he thinks is in Neverland for some reason at this point. And they stumble across the natives, led by a tiger lily, played by Rooney Mara. And they are guarding the secret fairy kingdom. And they also, had contact with Peter's mother. Blackbeard figures out where they are. They go and figures out where the fairy kingdom is. And there's a big final action scene in the fairy kingdom where Peter basically comes into his own and is able to fly and do Peter Pan shit, finally. That's the plot of the movie, right? And, some of that might sound fun to you. It's not. I can tell you for sure that it's not. But let's go back to the beginning. And let's talk about the scene that this first 15 minutes, which you liked. And I'm not want to be dismissive of the fact that you liked it. I don't. No, I really don't. Tell me about the scene you thought was really, really good. And what was about this first 15 minutes you think worked and in juxtaposition to why the rest of the movie didn't work for you, I guess?
Yeah, so I thought the stuff with Peter in the orphanage was kind of good. I liked the Oliver Twist thing they had going on with these nuns. They were really, really mean nuns, and it's established, I think, pretty well in the beginning of this. And kids start disappearing from the orphanage, which is kind of an interesting little mystery, like where are they going? And, they got shipped off to Canada. They're escaping the war, and, someone adopted them and took them off to Canada. But, like, boys are disappearing every night. And so we get these nice little, boyhood Hood shenanigan scenes where Peter and his friend, I can't remember the friend's name, but he has like a best friend, you know, that's known him his entire time there. And they kind of get into trouble and kind of try to evade the nuns, which is fun, I think. And it is, you know, Peter Pan is supposed to be this like mischievous, scheming sort of, you know, rebellious character. And I really, I'll tell you one thing I liked about this movie a lot was Levi Miller, because I hate child actors. I often find them incredibly annoying. And I think he's very good in this, you know, for a newcomer who'd only done some very minor projects before. He'd appeared in like some TV shows and short films and stuff. This was a huge casting call, and he ended up being Joe Wright's, you know, number one. I think he fares pretty well in this. I mean, there's a lot of crap going on all around him, but even when the movie's at its worst, I feel like Levi Miller's pretty good. And I think we see a little bit of that right in this opening scene. There's this great moment. Like I'm not loving it at this point, right? But we've got this scene in the bedroom, you know, these beds lined up, the same old, you know, it's the cider house rules or something like that. And we see like something dropping out of the ceiling and snatching up boys from their beds, and they're like flying up out of the frame. And I was like, what is this? That's weirder and cooler than anything I expected this movie to be. And it turns out it is a flying pirate ship captained by Blackbeard, who we'll get to meet a couple minutes after this. But like, I thought, you know, that was very like Terry Gilliam, kind of surreal, like the flying ships flying down and snatching boys out of their beds. And of course, Peter ends up like dangling from a rope on it. And I was like, okay, like that's fun. I mean, that's especially if I was, you know, target audience for this, a 6-year-old kid, I think I would have been really, really into that. It is, you know, it's a lot of this I think is trying to be like an animated movie. It's trying to be like a cartoon. And in that moment, I think that works. It is just it's a silly idea, this flying ship in the middle of London. And I like that they went that big that early on, and it looks cool. You know, it's a very dark, dimly lit kind of couple of moments in this film.
But they do that thing where they put these, every time they grab a kid, there's like a column of light that
there's like a flash of light, and I really liked that.
Cool.
Yeah, it kind of lit up the movie a little bit for a while. It did. So I just really, really liked that scene. And, you know, when they're running away from that, I was like, this is kind of a fun, you know, nicely choreographed scene, visually interesting. Like, this is something I've never seen before. And something like, I thought this movie was just going to be like a retread of like Peter Pan's greatest hits, you know, everything you've ever liked in a Peter Pan movie, we're going to do it, but we're going to put like a nice Joe Wright sheen on it. And in some moments it does that, but in this moment it was kind of a new idea and a fun thing. I didn't know we were going to have a flying ship. And then we have that battle, which you were talking about. Again, fun idea, not executed terribly well. It feels a lot like that the dogfight scene in Tron Legacy that we talked about eons ago, where it's kind of weightless and kind of very CGI heavy. But then there's this great moment where the ship just kind of shoots up into the stratosphere and the sound cuts out, like we're in a pirate ship in space. And I was like, all right, maybe this is like a midnight movie thing, and we just didn't expect that out of it, and maybe that's why people didn't like it. And then it quickly just becomes, you know, generic Hollywood blockbuster number, you know, 6,070 whatever. But in those few moments in the beginning, I was like, this could be kind of an original take on the story that I might like. And, you know, Joe Wright is still a pretty good visual stylist. I mean, there are images in this, and later on too. I mean, there's some just beautiful candy colored, almost like Miyazaki looking stuff.
I cannot believe you just used the word Miyazaki in relation to the Pan movie.
I really do think there's some really nice looking stuff here, and every review I read said the visuals are just gross and horrible.
I think I agree with those reviews, Nick. I think the movie looks like trash for the most part. There are little moments. I
thought there were some moments that were really nice, very very animation like. But I got my hopes up a lot for this movie, but once they get to Neverland, that all got dashed pretty quickly. But I do like, you know, give me a flying pirate ship any day.
Flying pirate ship, cool. And once again, for the second movie in a row, you can feel how badly Joe Wright wants to make a musical. Because like that, when they're snatching those kids up, it is very musical-esque, like the way that they're moving and the way that they're
and broomsticks or something.
It's just very like it's almost like in a rhythm, you know, and like they're so theatrically made up. The pirates, they'll have like face paint on.
Oh yeah, some of them are like in full-on clown makeup.
Yeah, exactly. There's
all very colorful. I mean, we don't get to know any of them except for Blackbeard, and maybe we see a little too much of him. But yeah, you could definitely see that as. I agree. You were talking last time, right, about him doing the Pirates of Penzance. romance.
Yes, exactly.
I guess maybe now we should probably not.
Maybe no.
Now we know. Now we know what that would look like.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it this time. No, but I just think like, for me, the stuff at the beginning of this, which I think you brought up Terry Gilliam, right? And I think that the problem with this movie in many ways is it often feels like impressions of, I think, other more successful takes on material like this, or directors who do sort of maximalist weirdo stuff, like there's a little bit of Baz Luhrmann in here for sure. We're going to get to that in a moment.
There is, isn't there?
They're almost directly, Gilliam is a great touchstone as well for some of what they're trying to do here, right? I mean, I don't think like Hook is a particularly successful film in all, Steven Spielberg's Hook is in all ways, but again, you're talking about someone who did a different take on Peter Pan, and visually that movie really it looks great. And, and I think like even you've got
Robin Williams there, and you've got Garrett Hedlund here.
Yes, you do. I mean, Dustin Hoffman, Garrett Hedlund would be the main like parallels, right? But I think that the other thing too, it reminded me of in some ways, the tone it was going for, right? In a more modern sense, is the Paul King stuff, like the Paddington movies, Wonka, like that's sort of like what the tone of those movies is, right? Which is especially Wonka, which is very much this like, soot-faced orphan type of movie with like over the top cartoony bad guys, but King is so good at honing that tone. So everything feels like it's part of that soup. And I feel like in this movie, and I think I actually saw it in one of your reviews that you put in the doc, is that every single person in this movie seems like they're in a different movie.
Yeah.
And the funny thing, I just want to talk about the performances, is I feel like, although I don't think Garrett Hedlund is good in this movie, he feels like the one who is most on tone with what the movie is, like the movie itself is doing. It doesn't mean I enjoy his performance. It doesn't mean I think he did a good job. I just think his level of like kooky zaniness most of the time and like over the topness is what the movie is mostly doing throughout. And I feel like, you mentioned Levi Miller. I'm not gonna slag on a child performance. It's very tough. I didn't particularly like him in the movie, but I also don't think that he's given much to really do. He's and like I think that his character it flops back and forth a ton. He's got to cry at things that have no emotional weight because the movie just wants to tell us they have emotional weight. So there's that stuff going on. Rooney Mara is a disaster in this movie. Like, it's just a disaster.
Well, you could tell she doesn't want to be there, right? Like, later on, when they talked about this movie as part of a whitewashing thing, taking a white person and having her play a traditionally Native American character. Yes. And she said, I've always felt uncomfortable about that. And, of course, you see that at the time and you think, okay, Rooney Mara, like, you're just trying to cover your ass here. But, like, she does kind of look uncomfortable in this, right? Like, she doesn't look like she wants to be there. She doesn't look like she's having a good time. Tiger Lily's a fun character, right? Yeah. But like she's clearly not having any fun. I disagree with you about Garrett Hedlund. I think he's terrible. I didn't say he was good, Nick. No. But like I don't like whatever he's trying to do. I feel like it's working less than what my example of like who's nailing the tone, if anybody is probably actually Hugh Jackman. I thought he was going to be unbearable and just interminable in this. And I like Hugh Jackman, but knowing what he was doing in this and knowing this Blackbeard idea, which I thought was kind of a stupid idea anyway, I was like, he is going to be just impossible to watch. I found him kind of fun. Like, I thought he was okay. He's the greatest showman, right? Like, he's a guy who loves, like, he wants to be in a musical, and this movie kind of half-heartedly wants to be a musical too. Yes. And, the way he's kind of like vamping and doing his thing, like, I don't mind it. I thought I was going to hate it a lot more than I did. And, if this movie was a little more of that and a little less of, Peter's mommy issues, I think it would be at least a couple notches more successful.
See, we're not saying different things. I think Jackman is way better than Garrett Hedlund in this movie, and if you're talking about pure performance. But I think the tone of this movie is shrill and zany for zany's sake and not successful in doing that. And the biggest representation of that is Garrett Hedlund's performance in this movie to me. I don't think he's good in it at all. But I also don't think the movie works at all. So it's like, so that's what I mean. I just mean like he's the one who feels like he's most in the movie that's being made.
The bad movie that's being made.
Okay. Yes. the other thing about Rooney Mara, this is the same year as Carol, which is crazy because she's so good in Carol. She's excellent in that movie. She's been excellent in several movies. She's very hot and cold, right? She needs to play certain roles, I think, to be highly effective or work with the right filmmakers to be highly effective, right? She's fantastic.
I mean, she doesn't need the money, so
no, definitely doesn't need the money. She's fantastic in Dragon Tattoo, right?
Yeah.
She's great
in
Carol.
Not too far before this.
No, it's a couple years before this.
Yeah.
Carol is this year. A couple years ago, she's in Women Talking. You know, she's really good in that as well. This is just a disaster performance. Like, Lupita Nyong'o was considered to be cast in this. But like you said, it should have been a Native American actress who got cast in this. Definitely shouldn't have been a American white woman oddly doing a British accent, a really terrible British accent.
What is up with that?
And you're right, no fun. And I think part of the no fun, though, is either from her or from people on set being like, we can't have her doing like tribal stuff because it's going to be even more offensive. So they shoot themselves in the foot that way. She's so self-serious. She barely has any fun in the movie at all. She's dressed insanely. And I did write like...
I like some of those costumes, though.
Yes.
I mean, they are very
There's
colorful.
a lot of cultural appropriation going on in that whole tribal thing.
But so many colors, yeah. So no one can be offended by it because it's like everyone. Let's just throw it all in a blender. I gotta say, the stuff, I don't love those scenes, but I love that set, the tribal village that they arrive in.
One of the nicer like sets, locations or whatever in the movie, because it feels like it was built, right? It doesn't feel like they're on a green screen. So that definitely works.
Just very colorful. And like you said, a lot of, I mean, I guess we could call it cultural appropriation, but like a lot of interesting design ideas. I mean, some thought was put into this movie, right? Like it is a generic blockbuster in so many ways, but like you could tell that talented people, like Joe Wright were involved in making this. And I actually would have really liked to hear Dario Marianelli, who is the composer that Wright always works with. He wrote a score for this. The test audiences didn't like it, so they replaced it with a pretty generic score by is it John Powell?
John Powell.
Who's a very good composer also, but was probably brought in at like literally the 11th hour, like just write some action movie music for this. And
I mean, that's John Powell's special, is like come in and write like a sturdy but unremarkable score. And every once in a while, like the How to Train Your Dragon score, he writes something where you're like this is really good. Like this obviously came from a different place than your like generic, like, you got brought in to, do the additional music in the Superman Returns,
right.
Or whatever.
Right. But I mean, it makes the movie a little bit more generic. And I feel like, that scene we were just talking about, right, with the Dario Marianelli score, punctuating that the same way he's doing things in Atonement, that could have been an even cooler scene where the kids are getting snatched up from their beds. And I think it would have punched up some of these action scenes that I'm just like, this is nothing. Get it over with. Let's move on to something.
Yeah. I mean, the music isn't, like you said, isn't bad. So it's
there's nothing wrong with it. It feels pretty stock.
And there were a couple times where I was like, oh, that's kind of nice music. I had like that moment a couple of times in some of the action scenes. But we shouldn't skip ahead of some stuff, which is that he gets on the pirate ship and they go to Neverland. And it's like a series of things right in a row where I literally wrote, this is some of the most insane shit I've ever seen in a movie like this, which is they get there. The first thing Peter says is this Canada? And then
that's where they say they're taking all the boys off to.
Yes, I know. Directly after this is all of the pirates singing Smells Like Teen Spirit, which is how we get Hugh Jackman, like introduces Hugh Jackman as part of it. And
well, not just the pirates, all the
people that
they have basically slave labor, right?
They're the
mining picks them. So it's an interesting visual idea, right? Like the pirate ship is hovering like thousands of feet above this mine with just a bunch of dirty children and older people, picking away at the rocks and everything like that. And they are all chant singing Smells Like Teen Spirit. And like, who thought that was a good idea?
Again, that's what I mean, the Baz Luhrmann thing, right? This is definitely like that.
Well, right, but like we don't really. There's two popular songs in this movie.
That's what I mean, but that's what I mean. I feel like that's like a thing where he's like, well, we could just throw in this. Like that'll make it interesting if we just throw in like a Baz Luhrmann like thing. Like he can do it. Why can't we do it? They just had Jay-Z in the.
This is a kid's movie.
Yeah, listen, I know.
What kid born in 2008 to 2010 knows that song or cares or would recognize that? I mean, later on we get Blitzkrieg Bop. Why?
And the funny thing about both of these scenes is that they're not meant to be funny at all. They're meant to be like serious, and especially the "Hey ho, let's go" part.
Yeah,
is like supposed to be like
it's a torture
serious
scene. Yeah, for sure. It's when they're going to execute the prisoners. Yep.
Like, am I supposed to be like, I don't know, off-put or intimidated or moved in some way by you going, "Hey ho, let's go"?
I mean, in their defense, I guess it sounds a little bit piratey when you say it like that.
I guess so, but still. But like I said, there isn't anything else. Those two songs are in the movie. And then there really isn't anything else in the movie that is like popular culture, out of context, out of time.
It makes no sense. And like, I guess I'm glad there isn't anymore because it's used so poorly here that, what else are they going to desecrate on the way to getting to the end credits of this terrible Peter Pan movie? But like, I don't understand. I mean, think about how much that must have cost them, right? Like just to have a snippet of that song, to have people singing the lyrics to like one of the best known songs of all time. What good is that? Why are you adding to your $150 million production budget with that shit?
We only got to pay like half of it though, right? Because they're not using the recording. They're just using the
whatever it cost was not worth it.
I agree with you. If
they got a sweet deal on it at Aldi, bring it back.
And once we get here, especially once we get here in this whole section of the movie, which again, this is much like we talk about Aeon Flux, right? Which I think is a much more interesting movie. You can see the ideas still present in Aeon Flux. I don't think this movie ever had ideas like that, right? Because it's a Peter Pan movie, obviously, but
it's got happy thoughts. Maybe.
It's got happy thoughts. We start the parade of like like you said, the completely like just scenes that don't move into other scenes with any sort of sense or flow or sense of rhythm. They just go from one scene to another. Some of these scenes feel like they just put like a line of ADR dialogue in between the scenes just so they can put some connection between them.
Yeah, we're going to this place now.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, we don't want to go to that place. Why? You'll see, or whatever. I'm like, we could have just done this next scene and we would have gotten it. But we also get this parade of what I will just call, I guess, the solo stuff, the solo Star Wars story stuff, the worst stuff that's in that movie, which is a better movie than this movie, but the whole like, we're going to do all the famous catchphrases, but show you where they came from. Cause that's where what you as a film viewer, that's what you want to see. How did Peter start saying, think a happy thought? It was actually the bad guy who said it first, and then he uses it snarkily at the end. And even stuff like, the I can fly thing, they cut it off at the end. He's like, I can fly. And then he crashes. And I'm like,
there's a moment later on where Hook says to him, they're flying together. And he's like, I can fly. He's like, you don't need to crow about it.
Yeah. Okay. There's a lot of that stuff. There's a lot of that stuff. A lot of like, is this where Hook loses his hand moments?
Well, yes. Well, that's what I was waiting for. Why do we not have that? Bobby, this script made the blacklist.
I don't get it. It makes me really.
Maybe us and everyone else who saw this movie is wrong. Maybe this is a great script and we just couldn't see it.
It puts even more ammo behind my theory that most scripts on the blacklist wouldn't really make good movies. They just look good on the page, right? Because, especially this time, right? This is a very, very popular and hot concept, right? For what to do with IP and do a thing to make it your own and be able to make it into something that can go for 3 movies and spawn all this stuff and make you,
this is right after we had 2 Clash of the Titans remakes.
But at least those were just like straight up like remakes and they weren't like, what's the origin of,
Greek mythology. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
These characters are free to use. We can do whatever we want.
Zeus, you can't touch lightning. It'll shock you. Like that kind of shit. And we also get, when I really just, my eyes nearly rolled out of my head watching the movie, which was Peter is not just a kid who comes to Neverland who learns how to fly and doesn't want to grow up. He's the fucking chosen one.
Always.
There's a prophecy that foretells the coming of the chosen,
a boy
the chosen
who could fly.
Pan, and Pan isn't a last name. It's a title bestowed upon him by the tribe. Our greatest warrior is named Pan, all this stuff. And it's just like, this is needless in a movie like this. And that's what I mean by the idea of like the tone and whatever being all over the place is you don't do like the chosen one, fated Messiah story surrounded by like, look at this crazy skeleton bird that tried to eat me. You know,
like God, we got to talk about the birds.
Yes. So, but it's just like all that stuff is all over the place.
Yeah.
And, you know, thankfully, I mean, it still happens now, but we've gotten Hollywood has, I think, realized that this stuff doesn't work anymore. And it only works for, you know, it can work. People will go see it if it's like in Star Wars, but they're not going to go see it if it's Peter Pan. It's just not, people don't care how Peter Pan learned how to fly. They just want to see Peter Pan fly around in a green tunic and a little hat and like have a good time and talk to Tinkerbell.
But here's like, we might as well, let me just throw this out there right now. Like we'll get to it. This movie needs to end with Captain Hook getting his hand bitten off by an alligator. It needs to be Peter's fault, and we need to set up this rivalry that is one of the most interesting things in the Peter Pan story. Yeah. The fact that they are good friends at the end of this, like, it's a nice idea, but like, how dare you not give us that? Like, I don't know.
Because there was going to be a Peter Pan trilogy probably when they first planned this.
You don't know that, but I'm assuming that's true. I mean, I'm sure that's true. But like, just like, if anyone is going to this, that's what you're looking for, right? Like that is the thing that's sort of bringing you to this movie is like, okay, Peter and Hook were friends once, and now they're not. Like, that's what Wicked is. I should just see Wicked, but like, my impression of what Wicked is like, here's a heroic character from a movie we love. Here's the villainous character. But actually, they weren't always like that. And this is how they met and how they got to know each other and where that rivalry that we saw kind of at the end of in The Wizard of Oz. So, like, it's not that hard to do, I feel like. So why not do it here? Why not at least try it here? Not that I'm saying that, you know, Wicked was that it wasn't hard to do. I'm sure it's great. I will see it at some point. But like, that is a beloved film and a beloved story and an interesting idea, at least as far as I know about it. And why couldn't this have been?
Good question, because less talented people wrote it, I guess. I don't know how to, other than that. But I would say it's again,
on the blacklist.
It's this conception, right? And it's this idea, right? Like, I'll put it into like another franchise context, right? It's this idea that was very prevalent around this era, a little after this era, where it's like, we're going to do a Daredevil show, but he's not going to wear that costume until the last 10 minutes of the last episode. And it's like, this is not what people want to see, right? I don't even like that show, but like that's a wrong-headed idea, right? Which is that, like, I do not want to wait until a minute, you know, an hour 47 into an hour and 50 long movie, see Peter Pan flying. Like, what are we doing? That's the point of the movie. Right, because that
first time he kind of just like doesn't die when he jumps off of something. He doesn't really fly. He just kind of doesn't land on the ground.
You know, it's just like, who is this movie for? Because a kid wants to see Peter Pan flying around and sword fighting, not hiding under a bush crying. Like, that's just like, it's not what is this movie. So this movie for kids? Because that's not what kids want to see. They don't care about a 35-year-old hot guy who's going to eventually be Captain Hook, or a woman dressed like oddly like an Indian, like, or Native American,
wearing rugs in her hair.
Rugs in her hair. Like, you know, that's what I mean. So that's why the movie just doesn't, on the script, whatever, doesn't have a clear idea of who it's for and what a good version of this would be.
You know, I'm sure I had some kind of like not fully formed impression of this before when I was watching the movie, but you just made me think of this too. Like, Peter's, except for the first 15 minutes of the movie, which I think are far and away the best part of the movie, Peter's not really around kids much at all. And like, Peter Pan is this story, like the whole key of that story is like, Peter Pan is the boy who didn't grow up, and like, he leads these other kids to Neverland, which is like a fun playground, magical land for kids. And yet we hardly see any kids. You know, he's dealing with adult characters the entire time. And yes, it's fun to see this little boy kind of outsmart, you know, these grown-ups essentially, but like, that's all we get here, right? There's action scenes in this where like Peter kind of does nothing, where it's like, it's the big people who are doing all the fighting and all the adventure-y, swashbuckling stuff. And it's like, then what's the point?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like, you know, it's got to be a swashbuckling, fun adventure, with Peter Pan at the center.
With Peter Pan at the center of it,
being a little stinker. Like that's the Peter Pan thing. He's a little stinker.
Yeah.
You know? He drives
I was saying
everybody
that before.
crazy.
We hardly even see that.
Yeah,
like his personality is nowhere near formed, at least the way we understand him.
Because he's so worried about his fairy mom, like his mom that's made of a million fairies or whatever at the end.
I'm sorry. He does shoot fairies at people in the thrilling climax of this movie.
And again, maybe I say I want Peter flying around more, judging by what it looks like when he's flying at the end. Maybe I don't want that because it looks like he's swimming. It always looks like he's swimming.
He looks like he's swimming when he's climbing across a rope. So why not when he's flying
when he's Tintin flying around the place, and so, like we were saying, basically it is a very chopped up, very, bifurcated movie where they escape. It's Hook, Peter, and Shmi escape. And then we have this sequence when they're going when the pirate ship crashes and they're walking through the jungle before they get to the tribe or whatever, is pointless. It is not fun. It's trying so hard to be fun. It's like it's just fun, right? Look how fun this is. And I'm like,
do you guys remember the Indiana Jones movies?
Exactly.
Well, we're gonna do that. Just a shitty version of that.
And these birds,
is that a thing? Did we just hear a mysterious sound? Oh no, it's probably nothing.
It's probably nothing. Don't worry about it. No, it's this crazy skeleton bird.
Oh my God, these birds, they look like they're out of a PS2 game. Like this is $150 million movie.
And the problem here, and what I've learned a lot from watching like Corridor Crew on YouTube, like there's like the visual effects people react to visual effects and they break them down a lot and they talk about them a lot. A lot of what they say is like, if you really look at the creature or this thing that you think looks bad, it's not really any one element that you're looking at that is actually bad. Like if you literally break down this bird is moving, the feather technology, how it's animated, it's actually done well. But it's not a photorealistic element. And the people in the scene are shot in a way or lit in a way where they're not comped well, they're not cut out and composited well into the scene. So nothing looks like it exists in the same space. It looks like Roger Rabbit. It looks like human people. It looks like
animation composited on top of live action.
Yes.
And it's like, I mean, these birds end up coming back in the story. Like, whose idea was that? Like, why this element? We've never seen, I haven't seen every Peter Pan movie. I've never seen these ugly skeleton birds before.
But he's got to fly, but not fly. Because that's why they come back.
He flies on the back of one of these stupid birds later on.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why it comes back.
Yeah.
That's why it's there, so you can have him fly. But he's not actually flying.
Not really fly. Because he just has to believe that he can fly. You see, that's his...
But that's not even really the thing. It's like, it's not really... in the end, it's not really... He's like, I believe that I can do this, and so I'm going to do it. He just sort of like does it. You know what I mean?
They had a perfectly good song they could have used for that, too.
It's true.
This was pre R. Kelly in jail, so they could have probably gotten away with it.
At the time. And we have this whole thing where like, okay, this tribe finds them. It's very Indiana Jones or Star Wars. It's very like, oh, we're going to kill them. But it is, we find this charm around Peter's neck. And so now we know that he is the fated Pan or whatever. And his mom was here and Blackbeard loved her. But then she escaped and because she wanted to have an affair with this fairy. And then she fled to the real world. Then she came back though to fight. And this is what I want to talk about Amanda Seyfried. It's because there must have been a version of this movie where she's in the very beginning and then those like weird animated flashbacks that they do were actual like filmed flashbacks.
Those things are bad. Yeah. So he's saved by some mermaids, all played by Cara Delevingne.
Yes,
who, weird. They made a very big deal about her being in this movie. She's in it for like maybe 20 seconds.
Yes.
She plays a dual role or triple role. She's three different mermaids. And so the water holds memories in Neverland. So he falls into the water. He's saved by these mermaids and the water in front of him explodes into these scenes of, the prequel to this prequel that we don't get to see. Yeah. Like again, Amanda Seyfried was like a pretty big name in this as well. And she's kind of at a pretty good point in her career at this point. We hardly ever see her. And she's physically really only in one scene.
The very beginning, and that's it. Because the next time we see her, she's also like a composite of all these fairies who like make her in, like they form the shape of Amanda Seyfried to say goodbye to her son or whatever. But that line, right? So the line like Tiger Lily says, the mermaids, I wrote it down because I was like, this is such a we just need a line that explains this because we've cut all the other scenes that would explain what's going on here. The mermaids charged these waters with memories. You can see the past. Like, that's the whole explanation of what's happening. How they charge them memories, whose memory they've charged them with. Do they can just, I don't know, whatever.
When did that become a mermaid power?
Yeah, famous mermaid power, charging the water with memories that anybody can see. There's not even a mermaid there that, like, if there was a mermaid there who she said that and did it, like, that would make sense.
And she projects it with her fishtail or
whatever
something.
she does.
Yeah, there's got to be something.
She does
right?
She can do a mind meld with him or something, but it's like, why is Tiger Lily doing this? Actually, the scene right before that, though, we should back up because there's this. They find them. They're going to kill them. There's this like fight scene on a basically on a trampoline between.
Oh, I kind of like the trampoline fight.
It's just again, sometimes it's tough, right? Because when you don't like something, even things that are like a little bit good or a little bit interesting, it's tough to like be like, oh yeah, this is fun. Because I'm so checked out on what's happening. Well,
you're just jaded and cynical because I actually enjoyed that scene. It's very like Cirque du Soleil. They're, fighting each other, bouncing on this trampoline that for some reason is the center of the village. Like that's what they worship. It would be like the fountain or the altar or something. No, it's a trampoline, literally a trampoline. Yes. And that's how they decide who is worthy, who survives the trampoline fight. And it is, it's like Cirque du Soleil, WWE. I kind of like that moment. The guy that Hook fights there is kind of fun. And one of the things it doesn't pull this off, but like this movie does because Peter Pan can fly or, at the end of the movie can fly. There's just like verticality to Neverland that I really like. I do feel like I love heights. I love being up in the mountains. And I feel like there's a good sense of that in this movie. Like there's a sense of height, a sense of this. It reminded me a lot of Avatar because I think that's another movie, again, that does that really well where, the world above the clouds, the world, the elevated world is kind of an interesting place as well. And you can do a lot with like going between that place and the below place. And it certainly tries to do that. And this scene, I like the idea that Tiger Lily's tribe, like that's kind of their thing, right? Bouncing on this trampoline.
They have trampoline fights.
Living in essentially a village that is basically a giant treehouse.
Yes.
That's a really cool idea. And
very cool
in
idea.
a better movie, but I enjoyed it here. I was pretty checked out at this point too.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I was like, okay, that's fun.
Yeah. I would say, Nick, I think the proof of this show would not be that I'm the jaded one. Okay, so let's be fair.
Why do you say that?
Let's be fair about that.
I'm giving this movie some credit, and I'm giving it its fair shake.
This movie you are giving some credit. But so the scene is happening. They find the pan flute like necklace on him or whatever.
I don't like that.
Oh, you are the chosen one. And this is really where I'm like, okay, I can't. Like, there's nothing that can save this movie for me now. We're doing like a chosen one narrative or
does
whatever.
Does a 6-year-old know what a pan flute is?
I don't know. He's not because 6, though.
No. I just mean the target audience for this movie, I think, is like 6 to 10-year-old kids, right? Older than 10, you're going to see something a little edgier than this.
Yes.
Younger than 6, you probably, it's a little violent for you, something like that. So between 6 and 10, like, shouldn't the symbolism work for that audience? I mean it doesn't work at all.
Pan, I guess.
But
he does like that's a very famous Peter Pan thing, the flute, the pan flute thing. He plays that a little bit, when he says racially insensitive things in the Disney movie.
If it was a frying pan, it would make more sense to the target audience of this movie. The necklace with a skillet.
And then they're like, oh, we know your mom. She trained me. Mrs. Targarelli says she trained me. And she's still alive. And we can find her. If you can, and this is when they really start dumping the lore on you, which is that Blackbeard showed up. And he ruined everything, and he drove the fairies into hiding. But if you can fly, they'll see you, and they'll come out and help us fight Blackbeard. Is like what she's saying, right? You perform the duties of the chosen one, and we can overturn Blackbeard. The same moment, Shmi has betrayed them or whatever, and led Blackbeard to them, and so he comes and starts turning them into bright dust when he shoots them or whatever, which I guess is a way to get around with it.
A fun idea that I hated after the first 2 or 3 times I saw it.
Because they do the thing again, the tone thing, where someone will turn into freaking bright orange dust or bright blue dust, And then everyone's supposed to react around them like a human being has just died in front of them. And I'm like, this doesn't work.
But in a very colorful way.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. So I will say, like, and again, this is Blackbeard is like kind of going through the village. And again, this is one time where the blocking and stuff is like, and the choreography is just not good. It's like you don't understand what's going on. Where is everybody going? What are the stakes? How close is anybody to anybody?
Yeah.
There is one almost cool scene where Peter is like hiding in this like hut and there's like all these red drapes and stuff. And like Blackbeard is sort of like hunting him in this room full of red drapes.
His sword, runs it through, and we see his eye through the slit in the drapes. Yeah.
But it starts out quiet. He's being very quiet and like kind of like menacing, and like the lighting is cool because you got the light filtering through the red, and it's a neat looking thing. And then again, like it like transitions from that out of that scene, like, and it's just like the ending of the scene is he just cuts to the thing and like Peter just falls down and all the elegance is gone from any of the blocking or the staging, and then they get away. I don't even remember how they get away. And
I don't know, like you're talking about the scene and I remember that part, but like a lot of the stuff leading up to and following that, it's like, I don't know, they get out of there somehow. Like,
Garrett Hedlund tells
I
them
watched this last night.
There's a map so did I. There's a map to the fairy kingdom. And she's entirely is appalled that he would say that he doesn't tell Blackbeard where it is, how to get it. He has no idea, but he just tells him
secret.
Yeah, he tells him it exists, and she's appalled.
She has to be mad at him for something.
Yes, and he goes like, I couldn't watch you die, and she goes, you should have turned your head, and I'm like, what is this movie? I don't understand.
That's a pretty badass line for a movie that's better than this one. I kind of like that.
But the tone, like that's not a tone you say in a movie where it's like, people are slipping on banana peels, essentially. Like that's
well, when the chief of the tribe, like when he is killed by Blackbeard, he looks him right in the eye and he says, "Death is the greatest adventure." I was like, that's pretty badass too, but not in your PG-rated candy-colored kids movie. Come on, people.
That's a line. See, again, it was something that's a line from the original Peter Pan. But because when he thinks he's gonna die, he says, I think death would be a pretty big adventure," is what he says.
Well, I feel like that earns it a lot more than this movie does.
Yes, of course it does. The biggest damn thing I can say about this movie, honestly, is that yes, if you had told me this was a straight up like a Tony, handsomely mounted, self-serious adaptation of just the Peter Pan novels or whatever novel, I would have been like, oh, that sounds boring. But at the end of this movie, I was like, I wish that's what this was. Like I would at least would have been able to be like, ooh, look how they did some of this like work, But and this is when the ADR the line where it's like, we got to go the one place he won't follow us. Blackbeard won't follow us because there are all these crocodiles or whatever. I'm like, okay, here we go. Crocodiles.
Yep.
And the crocodiles are them big. The crocodiles be big. And
it's very Lake Placid.
Yes. And this scene, I was like, okay, like there's a little bit of a stake in this scene because it's like, is this where he's going to lose his hand? Like it's not much of anything, but I'm like, at least I can be like, okay, maybe he'll lose his hand here. They don't do it.
Barely does anything with the crocodiles like that. No. Like that's Hook's thing, right? That's his whole raison d'etre. And, it's mostly Peter that's being kind of menaced by the crocodiles here.
It absolutely is. And then this is when the mermaids come in, like we're talking about, and they have the mermaid scene. And then, again, this is one thing, the sloppy, I don't know if it's how they decide to stage it, if it's in the script this way, whatever it is. This like ultimate secret map that this tribe has that no one's allowed to see, that if anyone finds it, it could spell doom for an entire civilization, is just on a like skin in the middle of the town. And the only way you can possibly figure out its riddle is if you just shine a light on it. Like that's all that happens. Smee accidentally shines a light on it. And he's like, look, I found the map. And then that's it. And I'm like, was there more to this in a previous incarnation of this? Did they have to cut it down, whatever it was? But it's just, again, it's just so hastily made, so clumsily made.
I agree. Like all the things we've been saying, like I didn't see anything about this. This feels so much like a troubled production to me, right? Like this seems like something where they got on set and like they ran out of money or like, personnel were dropping out or something. I didn't see anything like that, I mean,
no, me neither.
So where is, what happened to just sort of make this so disjointed and so like half-hearted? I mean, I feel that maybe that's the word that I want to use for it is
I agree with you.
Like nobody seemed to care very much, but it's like you're spending ungodly sums of money on this. Like you can't have action scenes that kind of cut together in a way that is interesting and easy to follow. I mean, it should be, and maybe, I mean, maybe the studio imposed some cuts on it, but if that's the case, I can't imagine even what the better version of this looks like, you know?
No. I mean, it might be a test screening thing, right? It might be they show the movie like with the Marinelli score and they were like, well, this stuff doesn't work, so try to make it work. You know, so who knows if that happened? There were reshoots, if there was whatever. That stuff happens kind of just all the time in Hollywood.
They could have altered the pacing and things like that. But I mean, even if the pacing was better, it's still, there's so many bad ideas.
Oh yeah,
and
for sure.
They have been part of every version of this. And, you know, you almost kind of want someone to step in, be like, Joe, maybe not this.
Well, it's like that joke in Arrested Development where they're making the American remake of that Cousins Who Are in Love movie and that maybe is like an executive on. And every time they talk about it, it gets shorter and shorter. She's like, it's the best 120 minutes you'll ever spend. Then she's like, it's the best 90 minutes. And the last time it's like, it's the best 72 minutes you'll ever spend. They're just like cutting it and cutting it and cutting it. And that's what this feels like a little bit to me. Like, but like you said, it really feels like not a thing like Aeon Flux, which is like, no, Karen, like this is not what we don't want like a deeply thought out, like existential thing. We want like a Matrix thing. So like just cut the shit out of it. We'll just cut the shit out of it. Try to make it an action movie and get it out the door and just be rid of it. You know, this just feels like they probably made the movie they intended to make. And then when they started showing it to people, people were like, we don't like this. And so they're like, okay, like we just got to make it shorter. We've got to, you know, because in my mind, I can definitely imagine at one point this movie was like 2.5 hours long. Yeah. And it's under 2 hours now. And I think that's probably what happens. There's also this, I skipped over.
There's so little plot here too.
There's so little plot. We're almost done with the movie at this point.
Yeah. You broke it down in like 20 seconds before. And I was like, yeah, that's everything. That is literally the whole thing.
Yeah. There's this one moment that I want to bring up because it happens once. I expect it to be a bigger plot point. So Blackbeard's obsessed with this pixie dust stuff, right?
Oh, and scene. Yeah.
And there's this one scene where we cut to this decrepit, like old Salieri looking dude.
I was going to say Montgomery Burns, but that works too.
And he like huffs the fairy dust and it becomes like young Hugh Jackman again. And I'm like, okay, this thing, he's really like really old. And he's like Mother Gothel in fucking Tangled or whatever, where he has to like keep getting this stuff.
Yeah.
The gold. But it never comes up again in the movie, right? We understand that the whole reason he's doing it because he wants to live forever, because he doesn't want to die, right? Ever. So he'll kill all these fairies to live forever or whatever, which is a very dark thing to do. And again, it's the thing where the tones are just like all over the place, where it's like, there are no stakes here because like what?
Yeah.
What's going on? Again, and also the plan doesn't make sense because there are two things in this movie plot-wise that just don't make sense that are key things to the plot. Which, again, it just feels like, I don't know, we just got to do something. Tiger Lily wants Peter to fly so that the fairies will come out of hiding and help them fight against Hook, right? That's what she wants. Not Hook.
Right.
But Blackbeard.
Blackbeard, but who's been looking for them the entire time and hasn't been able to find them. So.
Yes, who hasn't been able to find them.
Yeah, they're like guerrilla fighters. Like they sneak out and they ambush his men. It's all never seen. It's talked about.
Yeah, so talked about a lot. So that's the natives that he wants to find. He doesn't think that the fairies exist anymore. He thinks all that's left them is this, whatever it's called. I don't even know.
But
I've erased the word from my brain.
What I'm saying is Pixum? Is it Pixum?
Pixum,
yeah. I think the natives are doing a pretty good job. So it's like, why do they need to defeat Blackbeard? They're kicking his ass. Like they are handling that exactly how they should be. So
but they want the fairies to come out of hiding to fight Blackbeard. But their whole thing is, we need to stop Blackbeard from finding the fairies. And I'm like, but why not just let him get to the fairies so the fairies can fight Blackbeard if that's your whole plan? And then Blackbeard's whole thing is, I want to live forever. The thing that'll make me live forever is the stuff that the fairies make.
Right.
So my solution is go and kill all the fairies? What is the idea here? Wouldn't he want to just like rule over the fairy?
Yeah, and have them produce unobtainium for him.
Exactly. But instead he was going to go crash his ship into like the heart of the fairy colony to destroy it so he can have unfettered access to, I guess, all the Pixum that's around him when he goes in that cave. I will say, the cave looks pretty good. I was I was like, okay with the cave.
The third act of this movie takes place inside of one of those geodes you buy at the museum on a field trip, like on the way out the door for $5.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not a terrible idea. It's kind of cool. It's not what I would have expected. I mean, like, I thought maybe we'd see a little more of Neverland here, and we don't really see much of it.
No.
And a lot of the parts of it we do see are very ugly. When they do, there's some beautiful location shooting in this movie. They shot in Vietnam, like in the jungle, and these incredible, you know, greenery covered mountains and stuff. But we see it for like 15 seconds.
Yes.
And then, you know, we're in the mines, or we're on a ship, or we're in this village, which I liked a lot, but I thought we spent a lot of time there, maybe more than we needed to. And then we're like inside of a geode to wrap up the thrilling action of the third act of this movie, which is kind of incomprehensible, really.
And there are some moments in this final action sequence where I was like, oh, that's kind of fun. Like I like the jumping between the ships sometimes, and I even like some of the...
Oh, me too. But like they walk out on the spar, and it's like they don't even look like they're trying to balance. It's so green screened. It's so fake looking. I mean, there's very little effort. I mean, that is a thing that could be, you know, like we're standing above, like I said, the height in this movie, the verticality of it. It actually gets across. So like, shouldn't there be a little peril? Like that's what this movie is. It's an old fashioned, you know, swashbuckling adventure where literally people walk the plank in this movie, but you don't get any sense of it, you know?
No, you don't. And I think like the big problem too is like, that's the whole movie, right? Is that it's weightless, it's stakeless. It's like, you know, it's a problem with a lot of prequels, but it's especially a problem here where it's like, I don't even understand why this is a prequel. It's like, I know what happens. Like, I'm not worried about Peter. No, Captain Hook is going to get his hand bit off at some point in some future installment or off screen, and he'll become Captain Hook.
But how is that not the climax of the movie? How is that not what this is all leading up to?
It really should have been the midpoint of the movie. It really, if you're making an effective movie, it should be, okay, show how Peter gets there. He initially is friends with Captain Hook, and then it's his fault that Captain Hook loses his hand. It turned Captain Hook like mean and bitter, and then the rest of the movie is like his fall, and then like some sort of big like final falling out or whatever, you know, like that.
Yeah, he's got to betray him. There's got to be like some reason built into this where Peter and Hook are going to be enemies forever. And the fact that they're basically just buddy at the end of this, it bothered me so much. I mean, they do so little with the relationship anyway.
Yeah, like, it's not really a relationship either. That's the thing.
No, it's they're just on the lam together.
Yeah.
They save each other's life a few times, but you know, of course they do. This is an action movie.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I could think about too is that the pirate stuff, the fighting, the sword fighting, all that stuff, there had already been, by this point, at least 3 pirate movies. There might have been 4 by this point, but there's at least those original 3 were out, which have some excellent, like, sword fighting, supernatural sword fighting.
Yeah.
In crazy circumstances stuff. You know, and you mentioned the score too. Like, this could have really used some Hans Zimmer stuff. Like, there's that one moment where I think it's Tiger Lily is like, you know, kicking the ass of a bunch of pirates. And then like Jackman's there all of a sudden he goes, you know, can I step in? And he like, you know, he gets his sword out. And I'm like, in a better movie, this would be
he pulls out his sword and says, can I cut in? Because that's the kind of movie we're watching.
But in a better movie that is still a little silly, but it's like, this would have been a cool moment because it would have been a cool, like, okay, here we go. Cool fight between these 2 people who we're supposed to know are like good fighters, right? And instead it's like, she doesn't even have a sword. She's just like kind of jumping around. Like, and then she gets the 2 like axes or whatever. And there's like some decent fight choreography here, but like not anything to write home about.
I mean, again, it's that conflict in tone, right? Like, this is a PG-rated movie. She's hitting people with axes. You can't show what would happen if you hit somebody with an axe. So we're just kind of like the camera switch. Like, there are a number of like hits in this that clearly do not register, right? Like, they're punches that don't connect or weapons that don't connect because they can't show that, which is fine. I'm not looking for blood and gore in this movie, but like then do these another way, you know, make them a little more slapsticky, make them a little more Charlie Chaplin instead of whatever this is trying to be. Yeah.
And then, you know, Hook shows up with his ship and they're fighting or whatever. And like, Black Hugh Jackman's character is like, why is it always him or whatever? And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's been like one time. And then the ship crashes.
And you let him go.
You did let him go. And then Peter dives down the safe hook, and that's when he can fly. And the fairies help him, and he meets Tinkerbell. He's like, her name is Tinkerbell, and
I still don't. I know I've said it a couple of times, but like, what happens here, right? Like the fairies and Peter kind of they form like a Voltron kind of thing. He uses
them as like
powers. And then he like aims his arm Iron Man style, and he just literally fires tiny little fairies at Hook, and they surround him, and they don't really they like weigh him down so that the ship then crashes. I don't understand it at all.
Yeah, they basically do like I won't kill you, but I don't have to save you. Like him.
But I mean, do those fairies weigh anything? Like it feels like they're literally dragging him down.
They got magic powers, so that's all I can say about that.
I want better fairy logic in this movie. I think is what I'm trying to say.
I also want the fairies to be like, again, like
have a personality.
This is the thing
for sure.
Where he
meets Tinkerbell here. Like I'm like, okay, at some point during this movie, he's gonna meet Tinkerbell, and he does, and she's like a little CGI thing that's about this big in the frame, and it's like
at minute 140, at hour 145 of an hour and 53 minute long movie. It's one of the things where it's like, again, if you want to do something that's like a little bit more like we're gonna make everything a little bit more grounded, like fine, I wouldn't like that, but do it. But then when then that's when these kind of like fairies would make sense a little bit more, right? But if you're gonna do the silly stuff, like I want to get a close-up macro lens view of Tinkerbell being sassy and talking, because like that's what she does, you know? Don't like you achieve nothing. You give nobody any joy or pleasure watching the movie. Tinkerbell being like a little CGI blip that goes
agreed,
and only Peter can understand her. Like that's. It's just not fun at all, you know?
Well, I mean, I feel like one of the things that this movie could have had a good time with is Hook, and like there's just nothing there. I mean, he's David Carradine trying to play Indiana Jones.
Yeah. I mean, if it was David Carradine, that would be awesome.
I think he looks and sounds just like him in this movie, which is weird.
I think he looks like Jensen Ackles and sounds like Jensen Ackles.
Oh, a little bit. I feel like there is an 80s Indiana Jones ripoff starring David Carradine. Like, I didn't look it up, but I guarantee it is. But, like, that's all this role is. And it's like, this is Captain Hook. Like, Captain Hook's a really fun character. He's more fun than Peter Pan.
Yeah. He can be. And also, like, nothing about the way he acts in this. Again, I don't want to get pedantic.
He has no swagger at all. No. He's a copy of a copy of a copy. Yes. He's Han Solo. Like, literally, he does the Han Solo thing where his ship shows up in this scene. We've kind of moved past this point. Yeah. But, like, he decides to go his own way. And then right in the middle of the final battle, his ship arrives and crashes into Blackbeard's ship. And, you know, that's what kind of saves the day at the end. Like, of course I'm coming back. Like, we've seen that in a pretty famous movie before.
Yes, blow this thing, kid, and let's go home. He, you know, they like even say out loud like the joke from 30 Rock where Tracy is like talking about Han Solo and he goes, "I like that guy. He acts like he doesn't care, but really he does." They basically say that line like 4 times in this movie about him. But it's the thing. It's like, okay, like, you know, if you're going to paint this picture, right, early picture of someone's going to become a villain, right? Let's just talk about if this was a good movie and a good way to do it, right? You've got to seed in the character the things that are present in the villain version of him later on.
Yeah, there's none of that.
He doesn't seem like a pirate.
He's a really good guy. Yeah. He seems like just very heroic. He seems like Indiana Jones. He's a little cynical, but like that's fine. We enjoy that, right?
Yeah. He's not egotistical. He's not like, at all. You know,
he's pretty selfless.
Yeah, exactly. And Peter does straight up save his life. So the fact that like you go like, okay, so if he loses his hand later, he like gonna want to kill Peter. Like, where do we get to that bridge from this character that we've known? We can't, right? And so, and I wouldn't even care about this, right? If we weren't doing this show, but B, if the movie,
neither of us would have seen this movie if we weren't doing this show.
If the movie didn't give him whole scenes where you're supposed to have like the challenge of him trying to be a good man. Like that's, they frame it that way. Yeah. And it's not a thing. Like, it's just not a thing, you know, just cause he like says he wants to like the mermaid to stay around cause she's hot does not mean that he's a bad guy.
No, it means he's a guy.
Yeah, exactly. So that, and then they go to they're basically on some geode cliff. And that's when Fairy Amanda Seyfried shows up and tells him, I love you. And he's like, Mama, I never knew you, but I always missed you. I didn't know it was possible. It's like this terrible speech that this kid has to give. I feel so bad for him having to give this speech to he
does the best he can.
CG nothing probably in front of him, right?
Yeah.
And then we get this idea, right, that first we get a little Hook and Tiger Lily hand holding, like, I'm going to show you how to steer the ship, almost like he's doing like the golf, teach you how to bring a golf club thing. And then we get Peter kind of like getting the Lost Boys, basically. This is basically what it is, right? He's getting the Lost Boys, including his friend. And I just have these things with movies like this where I'm like, they put him in his little hat, this little hat. And I'm like, okay, but like, just make it green. Like, just make him wear green. Why are you so scared of having him wear a green hat in this one moment? And then they get on the Jolly Roger, which is, of course, famously Captain Hook's ship, right? And they're flying away. First of all, the back of the Jolly Roger has like a neon sign on it that says Jolly Roger.
That? Yeah.
Again, another like,
Moulin Rouge.
Was this a Baz Luhrmann, a more Baz Luhrmann coded film at some point where there was like a lot of this like anachronistic stuff strewn out throughout the movie because it exists in those two songs and in that moment where there's a neon sign in the back, I think, and that's it.
The neon sign on the back of the Jolly Roger.
I don't know, the moon's going to start singing as they fly away. But a much better movie if that was the case.
That would have been a choice.
And then we get what we mentioned at the beginning, which is just the most egregious bullshit line at the end where he goes like, basically goes like, oh, we're best friends. Nothing will ever tear us apart, will it, Hook? Oh, no, I couldn't think of anything, or whatever. And then they're gone. I will say this too. He only has a hook in his hand one time at the very beginning of the movie where he's sharpening Peter's like pickaxe that he's mining in.
Yeah.
He has a hook that he holds in his hand. We never see it again. He doesn't bring it with him. He's not using it all the time. Like these are little stupid prequel things that could at least have some fun utility, right? This hook that he uses all the time to do stuff. And it's like, nope, it's not even an important part of his like personality or modus operandi. It's just nothing. It's nothing at all.
But also, I mean, like one of my favorite characters in any Peter Pan story, I love Smee. I always thought Smee was kind of fun. And like he is in this movie and it's a pretty good, I've never seen this actor before, but I like him in this. It's
really good. Yes, he's
a good comedic actor.
Yeah.
But like we never see any indication that he is now like he's Hook's first mate, right? Like that's the story. But he's just kind of tagging along for the adventure. Then he completely like sells out Peter and Hook like about halfway through the movie, and then he's just one of the bad guys, and then he just kind of disappears. And it's
he does help. He does kick that like saves.
Oh yeah, he has a little hero turn at the end there, but like there's never any indication. I mean, really, in the world of this film, like it should be him kind of bossing Hook around, like he would be the captain, and we never get that at all. We never get any indication that these two are going to be connected in some way.
No, not really at all. Adil Akhtar. Is the actor.
He's in this. So it's one of the bigger roles in the movie.
It definitely is.
Kind of do nothing with him.
What has he been in? Let's see. Let's go to film. A lot of comedies. A lot of comedies.
He's funny. I like him.
Both in Britain and more like he's in The Dictator. He's in The Big Sick.
Sounds right.
He's in Murder Mystery. He's in, Enola Holmes. He's in a lot of the Netflix stuff now as well. But and it does obviously a ton of TV as well. And we should mention too, like I guess Blackbeard's first mate is played by Nonso Anozie.
He's kind of fun. Yeah,
I love that guy. He's such a good actor. He's good in Ted Lasso. And some other stuff, and he's got a couple fun moments in this as well. It's such a weird role for Hugh Jackman to be playing, especially at like this point in his career. And
we barely talked about Hugh Jackman.
We barely talked about him because he's really like, he's crazy. There's weird stuff in the beginning. We talked about his weird, like, non-obsession with death. The thing about him is like, he tries to bring a little bit of reality to the performance sometimes, where like when he asks Peter if he's like there to kill him or whatever, he's actually trying to portray like real emotion in that scene. There's a couple of times too where he tries to do that as well, but he looks ridiculous. He looks utterly ridiculous with that weird wig.
Is really something.
And so many of his scenes, you can tell he's just on a green screen and he's badly composited out. There's one scene in particular where he's on the ship and he's supposed to be in bright daylight, but you can clearly tell they shot him inside on a green screen and then composite him into what looked like supposed to be an outdoor scene. So the lighting doesn't match at all. He looks bad. A lot of that is very distracting. And it's also this thing the whole time where you're like, why isn't he just playing Captain Hook in a regular Peter Pan movie?
Yeah.
Like, that's how I feel.
Like bringing Blackbeard into any of it. And like, I kind of like the idea, and I thought they were going to go much more in this direction. As I was saying before, Hugh Jackman, he is a musical theater guy. He loves that shit. He was in Les Miserables with Amanda Seyfried. Yeah. And like, I thought he was, I wanted a little more camp. I wanted a little more theatricality out of that performance. And we get a little bit of it like they were trying to do it. And then, he just becomes kind of generic Star Wars villain guy for the rest of the movie. And it's like, you're completely wasting a very talented person who can do that kind of melodramatic, over the top, campy kind of. I mean, I don't love that. That's not something I kind of gravitate toward, but that can be really fun, particularly in the hands of somebody like Hugh Jackman. And like, he's not charming. He's not over the top through most of this. He's just kind of there.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Like you said, he kind of falls away. And look, if this movie was a more Baz Luhrmann-y movie, I could see him having stuff to do, but again, this movie just lacks so much. You can feel these little pips of style, like we've mentioned, but then most of the time it's just very generic looking, and then sometimes very bad looking. And it's a weird one for him because he's never made a bad looking movie before this. Even the movies we don't like, even The Soloist is not a bad looking movie. It looks really nice.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Beautiful looking movie. And, I know he talked about this afterwards where he was basically like, I think this was in the doc you put together when he was talking about this around the time he was doing Darkest Hour. He was like, I didn't know if I was ever going to make a movie again, basically. Because this is the kind of movie that can end a career.
Sure it is. But
we have mentioned in the previous past, speaking of Karen Kusama, she made a movie that cost a lot less than this and basically was done directing for a while,
Well, that's called sexism.
Yes. 3 years later, this guy was making
a
movie with Gary Oldman, that was an Oscar player.
Yeah, he was back at the Oscars. Really, he recovered pretty quickly from this.
Yes.
But this was never a good idea for him anyway, I feel like. Now that we know a little bit about Joe Wright and we've seen a lot of his films, I guess it is a literary adaptation in some sense. Like, it's not exactly Anna Karenina, but it is a well-known literary property. But yeah, I mean, he's never worked on a budget like this. He's never really made kind of a pure, like, Hannah is an action movie, but it's a very kind of artsy, subversive take on what an action movie would be, very European. Whereas this is like, this kind of sophisticated, interesting filmmaker doing just generic blockbuster American Hollywood slop and not acclimating himself well to it at all. Like, there is a way to do this right, and he just never seems to find it.
No, he definitely was out of his depth doing this. And I think that's why I say if he had decided to do the more like Tony well-mounted version of this, I think he would have done a lot.
I didn't want to see that either.
I don't want to see it either, but it would have been a better movie.
I was afraid this was going to be that.
It would have surely been a better movie than this.
I don't like what I want to see now that I've seen this. David Lowery, who made one of my favorite movies of all time, made a Peter Pan movie a couple of years ago. And I don't know if it's any good, but I think that one is kind of the more serious, artsy.
Yeah.
Wendy and Peter, I think it's called.
Wendy and Peter. Wendy and Lucy is that.
Wendy and Lucy is also a movie.
It's a great movie with Michelle Williams, but it's not.
Yeah. Like, I always kind of shied away from his version because, like, I don't want the Tony handsomely mounted Peter Pan. But, like, after seeing this, maybe I could be a little more amenable to that.
I mean, that's also a straight-up Disney movie, though, so it's going to be a little bit silly.
Well, they said he kind of did that with Pete's Dragon also. Like, I haven't seen his kids' movies.
No. Pete's Dragon definitely has more of that going on. Speaking of Rooney Mara, she was in that movie, right? The Lowry movie. She's in A Ghost Story, isn't she?
She sure is.
Yeah.
There's a long take of her eating pie. It's one of my favorite film scenes of all time.
We'll definitely do David Lowery. So we'll definitely talk about him and hopefully talk about a good Rooney Mara performance.
Have you seen A Ghost Story?
I have not seen it, no.
Oh, man. I can't wait for your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, so that's this movie. I gave it 1.5 stars on Letterboxd. 1.5 out of 5.
Where do I sit with this? Yeah, I'm. This is a 3 or a 4 out of 10 for me. 3.5 out of 10.
We're in the basically in the same place with it. I think I went into it with not higher expectations. I didn't expect it to be very good, but I was like, considering what we've seen, but for all these other movies that he's done, I was like, at least it'll probably look cool. That's really what I was thinking. I was like, at least it might look cool. And he has a good manage on performances. That's what I was too. I was like, so it's probably going to at least be have some interesting performances in it, right?
I see. I think it has, like, the lead actor in this, who is the kid, who is Levi Miller. I think he's okay. Like, you said this is the worst movie.
Very generous to Levi Miller.
I think he's pretty good in this. I liked Live by Night a lot less than I liked it. Like, for some reason, that movie, you know, maybe it's a better Chris movie overall, but yeah, but that's really all you've got. I mean, that movie, there's literally nothing that works in Live by Night, and everything feels incredibly half-hearted there. Whereas in this, there's like these little moments where I was like, that's kind of cool. That's an interesting idea. I didn't expect that. It kind of caught me off guard. You know, that's what got me through the hour and 50 minutes of this. Whereas that just felt like, you know, you took a book that I really liked and you just made a mesh.
Well, you also had more of a
kind
of a pre-knowledge of it. This movie, I was just like bored. Like halfway through it, I will say, I think, like, again, even though I don't think the last 30 minutes, the action is great, at least it was like entertaining enough.
It's action.
Where, yeah, exactly, where I could get, I was like, okay, at least I'm on the downslope now. Like, I don't have to fight.
At least we're not talking about prophecies.
Exactly. But the middle part, I was like, I don't know if I can finish this movie. Like, I had that feeling like halfway through.
I never felt that way with this one. I definitely felt that way with Live by Night. I had to watch Live by Night. I tried to watch that in its entirety so many times, and I just couldn't do it.
Well, I just had to watch Live by Night to see how big Ben Affleck's hats would get, so I had to just keep watching it for that. So yeah, that's Pan. Next time we are discussing Darkest Hour, which I'm actually excited to watch.
I'm surprised you haven't seen it. I haven't seen it either.
No, I haven't seen it. There is a category of movie. I mean, it came out, 2017 or whatever that time. That's when my son was born, and like there was like 2 to 3 years where I basically watched nothing other than like the 3 Marvel movies that came out that year. Basically, I would just be like, okay, I'll go to this, and then that's all I'll really watch. So I missed a lot of that stuff. There's also like and I've heard that's not this, right? But there's that class of like Oscar movie.
I tend to shy away from those
that
too.
I'm like,
I know exactly the kind of movie you're talking about.
Game, you know, like, I mean, like, it's
but
like
when you got a Gary Oldman in it, like I'm surprised I haven't seen Darkest Hour, because I just love the shit out of that guy. So
I've heard good things about it, and it's more than just like that style of movie. So I'm looking forward to watching it. And then I have no idea what to expect from the other two. I think, you know, we got Cyrano and The Woman in the Window or whatever it is next. I think Woman in the Window is going to be bad. That's just my knowing nothing about it, my impression.
I have a feeling that's going to be bad. I think Cyrano might be interesting, might be fun. Might do
exactly.
Like an Anna Karenina thing.
Exactly. That's what I mean. So I'm at least interested to see what he does in that. And then after that, we'll set up old Petey Jackson.
We're a few weeks away from Meet the Feebles.
We're a few weeks away from Meet the Feebles. That should be a lot of fun.
Oh man, Bad Taste. I'm dreading the well-known Peter Jackson, but I can't wait to see the lesser-known Peter Jackson.
It's going to be fun. I think it's all going to be fun to talk about and go over and really break down. And even the Hobbit movies, which obviously they're kind of a bummer in some ways. But they're not normal movies. That's the thing. It's not like they're like, oh, he just did a boring thing with this. Like, there is so much weird shit to talk about when it comes to those movies.
Those movies are trying.
Yes, exactly. So we at least have something to talk about.
There is effort there, like effort that you don't see in something like Pan.
Exactly. And I say this, like, we said a lot of bad things about Pan tonight. It takes a lot of extremely talented, dedicated people to make any movie. Sure. And sometimes they just don't get it right. It's just one of those things.
Are you afraid of offending the rabid fan base for 2015's
No. But I do think that sometimes it's easy to look at a movie that's not good.
If we get hate mail for talking shit about this movie.
I've only ever got hate mail for talking about one movie in my life on a podcast, and that was Man of Steel.
I hate that movie too.
Yeah, because at the time I was hosting a relatively popular comic book podcast, like very popular, like thousands and thousands of listeners a week. And we reviewed Man of Steel and we didn't like it. And it was like I had shat in a bunch of people on the internet's mouth, basically. I got so much hate on the internet for it. It was crazy. It was the one time I was like, man, I feel like kind of important right now, but I hate it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I hate this. I hate that all these people care about what I said about this stupid movie.
Well, it is a stupid movie.
It is a stupid movie. I'll take all the hate for it now. It's a stupid movie. Anyway, so I was going to say, like, I think it's very easy. We talk about this a lot, right? Talking about finding the good and the bad and kind of all that kind of stuff. It's that it is incredibly hard to make anything. And movies are like little corporations, right? It's like you've got hundreds and hundreds of people working on it. And like the people who do the costumes, none of them are trying to do a bad job, right? They're trying to do a good job.
No, and so much effort was put into the costumes in this movie.
Yes, and so much effort in just everything. The animators, the people doing visual effects, none of them are going, I want this to look like shit. They want to look good.
Although if you told me the people who created the birds for this were like, I want this to look like shit, like it was a self-sabotage thing, I'd be like, that tracks.
But it's been fascinating to listen to like I talked about the Corridor Crew before, them talking about what it's like when you're working on and they have a lot of guests who come on who are like big visual effects people who work for like Weta and ILM and all these people. And they'll talk about like sometimes you do something, you finish it, and then so the director will be like, you know what? We kind of want to change it. We want it to look like this instead. And it's got to be done in 2 weeks.
You don't know whose decision it is either, right? Like that could be a test audience thing too. Maybe they had some awesome looking birds. They're like, no, this needs to be a little shittier.
And like, stuff just like people are changing shots overnight and you don't, and these FX houses are most of the time, vendors that are being hired, that are being, sent stuff and given instruction with crazy deadlines, and they have to lowball the bid so they can win the bid. Even the effects industry is like a shit show, which is,
a lot of people working in it are like very low paid. They're like just starting out, they're entry level. I definitely don't mean to, I don't like the birds in this movie, but
I like to, like, when we're talking about these things, to like, I know you and I both don't think that, right? But sometimes people who are listening, or some people, don't think, or haven't, spent time, making movies or making videos or whatever, you sometimes just, you don't know how much effort it takes to make something bad, and so I just want to say like that about this, but this is the first one really where I was like, Joe.
This was a bridge too far for
that one review that you sent, the New Yorker guy who was like, this is Joe Wright's best movie by far.
Oh my God. Anthony Lane, a very well-respected critic. Yeah, I was like, now I want to go back and read his reviews of everything Joe Wright made up to this. Because it's like, did you miss something? Like, this is a better movie than Atonement? Really?
Yeah. This is a better movie than Anna Karenina? Like, it's a better movie than Pride and Prejudice? Like, it's crazy. Some of you even say that. But anyway, to each their own, I guess. All right, so like I said, next time we're going to be talking about Darkest Hour, Oscar-winning Gary Oldman performance. Is this going to be our first movie with an Oscar winner in it?
I think it might be.
For a winner for that movie.
For an acting category, yeah, I think so.
Because people are nominated for Atonement but didn't win. Same thing for Pride and Prejudice. Just thinking of him right now. That's it for him.
Well, we've done an Oscar winner. We talked about Argo, but
right. But I'm talking about performance.
I don't think we've ever seen an Oscar-winning role.
Performance, yeah. But obviously, Argo is the best picture.
For the record, Rooney Mara and Amanda Seyfried were nominated for Razzies for Pan, which
really means Amanda Seyfried. Like,
it really is, because she's hardly in this movie. Like, I don't feel like anything that's wrong with this movie is her fault. And like, honestly, I can't dump on Rooney Mara either. I mean, she said the right things afterward. It was a terrible bit of casting, and it is a half-hearted performance. But like, I don't know, maybe that was kind of self-sabotage there also. Like, if I put effort into this and I'm good at playing Tiger Lily, people are going to hate me more for that. I don't know.
Maybe. I just think it's like she didn't want to do like quote unquote like traditional like movie Native American stereotype stuff. So she kept it very internal.
Could have been worse. Yeah.
Could have been much worse.
It could have been worse.
Could have been much worse. Again, sometimes it's tough to blame actors in these situations. I mean, the Maras are a little bit of a different situation because they're like fucking billionaires. You can afford to say, Joe, I can't do this. Like, But like a lot of actors, like they just want to get a job, and the studio goes, we want to cast you in this. They're like, it's like, it's
a good get for Garrett Hedlund. I mean, this had to look pretty amazing on paper for a guy like that.
Oh yeah, this has been a long time since I did something that anybody cared about.
Yeah, I'm going to be part of another blockbuster franchise. Awesome.
Yeah, another non-starter blockbuster franchise seems to be what he does. He's a handsome man, though. I'll say that. That didn't leave him in the time between these. So, I'm trying to remember. Let's see. After he does Tron Legacy in 2010. Okay, 2010. So it's 5 years later he does this. In between this, he does On the Road. He does Inside Llewyn Davis. So he's doing like little movies, right? And I've never seen On the Road, but obviously
I love the book. I've always been interested to see what they did with that. It's Walter Salles, great director.
It's Kristen Stewart, right?
And I think he's not. Is he not playing Carrick? I think he's playing Sal Paradise.
He's playing.
He's playing Dean Moriarty.
He's playing Dean Moriarty. Yeah.
Which is kind of an interesting character. I should see that.
He is.
Walter Salles might be a good director to do on the show at some point.
Wonderful. I would be up for that. Wonderful in Inside Llewyn Davis, like we said.
Yeah. That's just a great movie in general.
A really very good performance that would have, if it was made now, would definitely be played by Austin Butler for sure. So it's a really Austin Butler move.
Well, he was Austin Butler before there was an Austin Butler.
Yeah, but Austin Butler's good. He's a good actor. And then after this, he does like He has Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk, which, have you ever seen that movie?
I've always wanted to.
It's
I've
a
always
weird
been intrigued
movie,
by
man.
that.
It's a weird fucking movie. He's in Mudbound.
Mudbound was really good.
Yeah, I don't know what he is in it. I don't know who he plays in it, but he's in that movie. I don't remember
him being in that at all.
He does like Triple Frontier, which the J.C. Chandor movie with Ben Affleck, which doesn't really like take off. He does a bunch of movies like Dreamland, Dirt Music, The United States versus Billie Holiday, The Tutor, The Absence of Eden, Desperation Road, Marsh King's Daughter, like all bunch of stuff that doesn't exist, right? And he just really
could have made up those titles, and I would
did. You'll never
Garrett
know.
Hedlund's in those movies. Yep.
He is in Tulsa King, so he's in one of the
Sylvester
Taylor Sheridan
Stallone
universe shows.
Series. Yeah.
Yeah. He was also in Lawmen Bass Reeves, which is another Taylor Sheridan show. So Taylor Sheridan likes him.
All right, so he's got a little
Taylor Sheridan juice to work off of at this point.
It's a good person to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Just stay in that TV zone and do your thing, my friend. That's all you got to do. But yeah, I mean, we talked about it back when we did Tron. He's not a very good actor. He's a very specific actor, right? You got to probably point him in a certain direction and just really manage him. He's not good at this, like, I'm the leading man of an action movie, I should say. Like,
he's not Harrison Ford.
No.
I mean, he just doesn't have the charm. I'm sorry to say.
No, he doesn't. It's one of those things, very few people have the charm of someone like Harrison Ford. There's been so many movies that have tried to do it.
By the way, the question I kept asking myself is, who's the better choice to play this proto Hook that he plays in this movie? I landed on Sam Rockwell.
I mean, the role is better if Sam Rockwell is playing it.
Agreed, but I do think he would have been a lot of fun in this particular role.
Yeah, of course he would have been a lot of fun.
At the time, I think that would have been a wonderful casting choice. It's a little weird also, right? Like, sorry, I'm still on Pan.
Let's keep talking about it. It's fine.
Just the relationship here, right? It's this older guy and a kid, and they're kind of just, we've seen that in movie like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is kind of that also, but like, these are like two sworn enemies that we know are going to be adversaries, but I don't know, they have almost like a big brother, little brother thing going on. It doesn't work. Like it was never a good idea.
Also, Hook's not a pirate in this.
Hook's not a pirate at all. He's a slave. He's a guy working in a mine.
I expected him to be like the first mate of Blackbeard or something. That's what I expected.
Like, why does how did he get to Neverland? Like, maybe that's a more interesting story than what we got here.
I mean, if it stars Garrett Hedlund, I don't think so. But
but if it stars Sam Rockwell?
Yes, but I just rather take just...
Like, who was he before he got to the mine, I guess is what I'm saying.
He was just a scallywag who he was out for himself. I made some mistakes, but I got by. Like, that's what I feel like would definitely be the backstory of this Hook. This 32-year-old man who they kind of want to sell you as both older and younger at the same time. It's one of those weird things.
I agreed with
movies
that.
like this.
I didn't really understand it.
But it's like, it's like anytime they try to do this, like, this movie reminded me in some ways of like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, right? Where obviously Sean Connery movie was Sean Connery's last movie where he was like, after this. The reason why he took that movie, right? So he passed on all this stuff. He passed on Lord of the Rings. He passed on The Matrix. And he basically said, like, I thought they were crap. And they ended up being like, basically world changing. So the next thing I think is crap that's like this, I'm just going to do it because obviously I'm wrong. And that was League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. But in that movie... The way, right? They needed, it's not even like, of course, Alan Moore hates it as well he should, but they added characters to it, right? And they wanted somebody to be like, like the heartthrob, like American guy in it. And that's why Shane West plays Tom Sawyer, who's a spy for some reason. But it's the same thing. They try to make him like Indiana Jones-ish, right? They try to make him like, like I'm this cool, charming guy. And it's like, guys, just because somebody is handsome, it does not mean they can be Harrison Ford. And that's the thing that for, I feel like 40 years, studios continue to just realize, just not be able to get to their heads, right? You can't just cast somebody who's handsome and have them say sarcastic things and they're charming. That's just not how it works. You need somebody who's actually charming. And I'm trying to think of who that could be in this era, but
definitely Sam Rockwell.
Yes, but Sam Rockwell's a different energy. Sam Rockwell is like manic and... all that kind of stuff, which I think is great and interesting.
I think he would be a fun Hook, though. Like the Hook that we knew before we saw this. Would be
very, very funny Southern California flair.
I mean, they're not doing any more Peter Pan prequels, but if they do.
No. But it's not going to be that long before they're like, we should do another Peter Pan movie. That's going to happen. We're going to make it something interesting. Like that someone's going to do that. Some studio executive's going to get in their head that what they need is a new Peter Pan movie and a new Robin Hood movie, and it's going to happen.
Oh, maybe.
Because it always fucking happens, and nobody cares about them. Do you know there was a Robin Hood movie that came out a couple years ago with Taron Egerton? Do you remember that happened?
No. I barely remember the Ridley Scott one, and I actually really liked the Ridley Scott one. But like, if you tell me anything about it, I remember one scene in that movie.
Taron Egerton played Robin Hood in 2018, Nick.
What was the name of the movie? Was it just called Robin Hood?
It was called Robin Hood.
Just like the one was like 2010 Ridley Scott with, geez, who was in that?
Russell
was it Russell Crowe?
Yeah. Wasn't Kate Blanchett in that movie? Wasn't she Maid Marian?
Maybe.
Who was Nottingham in that movie?
I remember a castle siege scene with hot oil that I thought was real cool at the time.
Well, Jamie Foxx played Little John in...
Yes. Yeah.
No, that's not the Ridley Scott one. That's the Taron Egerton one.
See, I remember seeing him. Maybe I saw that movie? Oh, I don't know.
Ben Mendelsohn is Le Sheriff de Nottingham in that Robin Hood.
I love that guy, too.
Directed by someone named Otto Bathurst. That was the only movie he directed.
I don't know. You're kind of selling me on it.
I'm not trying to.
I feel like I remember Jamie Foxx being in a Robin Hood movie, though. Are you sure he wasn't in the Ridley Scott one?
He's definitely in the this one. He's definitely in the Taron Egerton one.
I don't think he would have been in both.
No. Russell Crowe, Kate Blanchett, William Hurt, Mark Addy, Oscar Isaac, Danny Houston, Eileen Atkins, and Max von Sydow were in...
fucking great cast.
A great cast.
I may even own that movie.
Russell Crowe was Robin, obviously. Though the original incarnation of that movie much more interesting, right? It was the Nottingham idea, right? That it was going to be about the story of Nottingham. Kate Blanchett plays Maid Marian. Let's see. Mark Strong is Godfrey. Oscar Isaac is Prince John, which, okay, very handsome Prince John. Mark Addy is Friar Tuck.
Oscar Isaac would have been a fun hook in this Peter Pan movie.
There you go. That's actually the perfect person who has that energy, who's handsome and has that energy, that Harrison Ford energy.
Yeah.
Oscar Isaac, yes. Danny Houston is...
Before Star Wars sucked it all out of him, cruelly.
Kevin Durand was Little John. Matthew McFadyen was Sheriff of Nottingham in that Robin Hood. Matthew McFadyen.
Which one?
The Ridley Scott.
I don't remember that movie at all.
You said
I remember walking out of that movie like, I really like this movie. This was a pretty cool take on Robin Hood, and I haven't thought about it since, I guess.
So not that impressive then.
I guess not. The castle siege sequence is pretty great.
Sure, Ridley Scott turns out pretty good at staging action sequences.
Although now that I'm thinking about it, was that actually in Kingdom of Heaven? Another movie that I saw and liked and haven't thought about or seen since then?
I've never seen what people say is the good version of that movie.
The 4-hour version? Yeah, I definitely own that, but the plastic is still on the DVD.
Of course you did. We were all DVD buyers in that era.
Yep. Yeah. Especially a 4-hour director's cut of a movie I kind of liked.
Exactly.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. It's got to be so much better. Yep. This is the real good version of it. All right. So for the 8th time, next week is Darkest Hour. Until then, thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Bobby.
And thank you to everybody who's listening. Until next time, be good to one another. Later.
And think happy thoughts.